friends, it's Mari Clark. I am going to be creating this very festive A2 size card with you today. I'm going to be using the burlap A2 background die. I'm also going to use the No Peeking stamps and die set. And I'm going to be using the amazing Country Wreath die set. I just love this die set so much. I'm going to start off here on my desk with an A2 card base, and this is a Nina 110 pound card base that I have all ready to go. I'm going to be using a piece of patterned paper as well. This is from the Farm Fresh Holiday Paper Pad. I love this paper pad so much. It has so many fun textures and patterns in it. It's really, really awesome for creating so many different projects. And I've cut that so that it will fit onto my card base with a little bit of white border. And I'm going to just adhere that onto my card base. And I am going to adhere the burlap A2 background die, which I've already cut out of white cardstock, over top of this kind of it's sort of like a burlap piece of paper, or it looks like burlap. I really love that. And some of the faux textures that are in that Farm Fresh paper pad are so awesome. Now this is what this burlap die looks like when you die cut it. I've cut it out of white cardstock, obviously, and it just adds so much really cool texture to a card. I'm just going to take my honeybee glue tube here, and I am going to go ahead and just add a little bit of this liquid adhesive to the back of my burlap A2 background die. My die cut, I should say. I'm not going to add adhesive to the whole thing, just here and there, so that it ends up adhering in just some key spots on the back of that. Now I have cut the first piece from that Country Wreath set. I've cut the wreath part of it, the base, and I've cut it from white cardstock, and I'm just going to use some foam adhesive squares to adhere this onto that burlap die cut piece to pop it up and give it some dimension. And you can just see there how dimensional this card really is going to be when it's all finished. Now I cut that twice out of white, and I'm just going to turn this so that it's not exactly set in the same way as the one below it, just offset it a little bit. I've got foam adhesive on that as well, so I've doubled up my foam adhesive right already, so we're gonna have lots of dimension here. I just adhered that on top of the other one, and now I've cut out a bunch of the other pieces from the Country Wreath die set. So I've got a whole bunch of the different little foliage pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere those on top of that wreath base that I have cut there in white. Now I cut the different little foliage pieces in craft and a little bit of gold metallic, just because I thought that looked really cool with the white. And then I'm going to have accents of red, and I just think that's going to look really neat. Now, I did add some of my bits with some of these little pieces with some glue dots, and I folded the glue dots over just to make the pieces a little bit more dimensional. And so that some of the pieces are going to be layered over top of others, the topmost piece being the one with a glue dot on it, so that it just adds that little bit of dimension. And then the ones that are less dimensional, I'm just adding with some of my glue tube again. So here you can just see I'm just rotating between the ones that are cut from the craft and the ones that are cut from the metallic cardstock. And I just love that little bit of gold. I think it just is really pretty and shiny, and it's still really nice and warm. It goes along with the warmth of that craft and that burlap cardstock or patterned paper that I have on my base. And I just really like how this looks. I think it just has a really cool look to it. So you can just see here how I've just alternated those pieces. And now I've also cut the holly leaves from the Country Wreath die set from some patterned paper. And I used some pattern paper from the Farm Fresh pattern paper pad again here. This is a white with just a little bit of gray texture on it. I just thought that looked really interesting for my holly leaves. And I'm just going to create my little holly leaf duos there, and then put that little cluster of red berries. And that little cluster of red berries again was created using a die from that Country Wreath die set. I am adding those little red berry clusters on with a glue dot. and just to give them some more dimension in that way. And I'll have 3 little clusters of these holly leaves and berries on my little wreath, just kind of putting them in a triangle. And then I'm going to fill in the other areas with these. I think these are meant to be poinsettias. And I have cut those with some paper from the Fresh Brood paper pad from Honeybee Stamps. And again, it's just kind of like a craft color with a little bit of white pattern on it. I just think that's really, really pretty. And so I'm going to add those to my wreath with a little bit of glue dot as well to pop those up a bit. And there you can see how the general design of the wreath is coming together. Now I'm going to add some dots of glue to those poinsettias, and I will add, or whatever these floral pieces are, I'm assuming they are poinsettias, like I said before. The Country Wreath die set also has a die with it that will cut just little dots or berries, whatever you want them to be. And so I cut those out of red cardstock. Again, I'm going to add those as a detail to the center of those little poinsettias or those little florals, those petals. Now I am also going to be using the Merry Buzzword. Love the honeybee buzzwords. They're just so awesome. And I'm going to just use the one die from the Merry Buzzword die set. There's actually 3 dies in that set, but I'm just going to use this one. And I've cut it 3 times, twice from white cardstock and once from red. And I'm going to just layer those together, glue those together to create a really dimensional sentiment for my card. Now here's that no peeking set, and I'm going to stamp out that bow, and I'm going to heat emboss it. I'm going to stamp it out on some craft cardstock, same craft cardstock that I've used for the little wreath pieces. I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool on that craft paper before I add my ink so that it's got no static on it. The embossing powder hopefully will only stick to the embossing ink in that way. So now I'm inking up my stamp using my Mini Misty here. My stamp is now inked up with some embossing ink, which is just a clear sticky ink. You can see the impression that it leaves, and now I'm just going to take that and run some embossing powder over it. This is a Wow embossing powder. If I can find it, I will link it up. It's just a really, really nice sparkly gold. I thought that was really festive. And it just melts so nicely here. You can just see my heat tool melting that embossing powder that's stuck to the embossing ink. And it's just going to melt nicely and add just this really pretty gold glitter to my bow. Now, something I love so much about Honeybee is there's so many coordinating dies for so many things in their collection. And this set has a coordinating die for this bow, which I love. And I'm just going to die cut that out. And there you can see how that just adds that sweet little embellishment. Now, one thing that I did notice is I'll show you this in the next transition in this video here, but I noticed that it seemed like the wreath was a little bit off balance. So I'm just going to move some things around. But before I do that, I am going to stick the bow down with a little bit of foam adhesive there. And I will stick this Merry Buzzword onto the edges of the wreath there with some glue dots as well, and just get that situated. Now I did want to add us another sentiment with that Merry. And so the Merry Buzzword stamp set has a bunch of different sentiments. One of them is Christmas. So I stamped that out in some black VersaFine Clair ink, and that is an ink that stays wet for a while. So you can add some embossing powder to it and melt it. So I stamped it in black, but I added that gold embossing powder over top, and I just felt like the sentiment would show up a little bit better with that black ink. Now I've trimmed that all out, and I've added it to the inside of my wreath with some foam adhesive so that it's, stands out nicely. And this is where I'm going to add those glue dots to my Merry Buzzword, and just get that adhered to my wreath as well. And just really love how this is going to look when it's added onto my wreath. And I just love how it's a little bit different. It's not maybe what you would expect from a traditional looking wreath, but I just think that it's definitely looks like something that's on trend. Like right now, the farmhouse look is definitely really trendy, and something that, people really love that look. And there's lots of this sort of like lots of really white kind of decor, and I just love this little pop of red. I think it's really pretty, and I think you could make a piece of decor for Christmas for your house with this die set as well. It's so awesome. I love it. The Country wreath die set. I will link up to all of the different products that I have used in the description box below, so make sure you check that out. I'm finishing my card off with some Farm Fresh gems from the recent holiday cheer collection, and I just love these little gems. I love all of the honeybee stamps gems. They're just such a fun way to finish off a project, and they have the gems in all of the different colors and in metallics and everything that you can ever imagine, so make sure you check those out in the shop. So I'm going to just use my craft pick here to go ahead and add a few of those little blingy gems to my wreath. And here's where I'm going to just show you, I felt like the wreath wasn't quite balanced, so I ended up moving that poinsettia that was originally to the right of the bow over to the left. And that little area to the right of the bow now, I'm just going to take some extra of those little red berries and add those over there, just kind of to balance the card off a bit. And I really love how this turned out. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I just want to wish you the merriest of Christmas, happiest of holidays, and 2020 is almost over. Wishing you health and happiness in the days to come. See you next time. Bye-bye.